carved by faith, Hezekiah's engineering miracle that saved Jerusalem. The chisel strike stopped at midnight. In the absolute darkness, 1,700 feet beneath the city of David, two foremen pressed their ears against opposite sides of the same limestone wall. Between them, 6 inches of rock. Behind them, 6 months of digging. Above them, a city about to die of thirst. One mistake, one miscalculation in the darkness, and 200,000 people would perish when the Assyrian war machine arrived. The mathematics were impossible. 2 crews, 2 tunnels, no surveying equipment, no iron tools. Digging through solid rock beneath a mountain, expected to meet in the middle with precision. The Assyrians were 60 miles away. The spring was outside the walls. And King Hezekiah had just ordered the most audacious engineering project in the ancient world. The year was 701 BC. Judah stood alone. To the north, the kingdom of Israel had already fallen. The Assyrians had devoured Samaria like locusts stripping a field. 10 tribes gone, scattered. Absorbed into the empire's brutal machinery of deportation and cultural annihilation. The northern kingdom's capital had lasted 3 years under siege before starvation broke their will. Hezekiah knew the mathematics of siege warfare. He'd studied the reports. Without water, Jerusalem would last 6 weeks, maybe 8 if they rationed brutally. The Gihon Spring represented both Jerusalem's greatest blessing and its fatal weakness. It gushed from the base of the eastern hill with 600,000 gallons daily, enough to sustain a major city. But it sat outside the walls. The moment an enemy army appeared, that blessing became a death sentence. To draw water meant exposure. To protect the spring meant dividing forces. To do nothing meant surrender. Every ancient city faced this paradox. Most chose defensible positions over water and resigned themselves to cisterns and prayers. Hezekiah chose excavation. The king stood 25 years old when he ascended to power. His father Ahaz had turned Judah into an Assyrian vassal state, filling the temple with foreign altars and sealing shut the doors of God's house. When Ahaz died, Hezekiah didn't gradually reform. He exploded into action. The high places destroyed, the bronze serpent Moses himself had crafted, which had become an object of worship, smashed to pieces. He called it Nehushtan, a piece of bronze. Then he did the unthinkable. He stopped paying tribute to Assyria. The Assyrian Empire stretched from Egypt to Persia, from the Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf. Their policy of mass deportation had erased entire peoples from history. And Hezekiah had just declared independence. The prophet Isaiah walked through the palace with a message that sounded insane. Prepare for siege, fortify the walls. Cut off the water sources outside the city so the enemy finds nothing. Then came the engineering vision. Bring the water from Gihon through the heart of the mountain into the city, into the pool of Siloam, inside the walls. The king's engineers studied the terrain with growing horror. The Gihon Spring sat on the eastern slope of the Ophel Ridge. The pool of Siloam lay on the opposite side, inside the southwestern walls. Between them, 1,750 feet of solid limestone, not through open ground, through the mountain itself. The straight-line distance was impossible, too deep, hitting bedrock that would take years to penetrate. The only feasible route snaked through the natural weaknesses in the stone, following an S-curve that nearly doubled the distance. We have no iron tools, the chief engineer said. The Torah forbids their use in holy work. We have bronze chisels and hammers against limestone. For 1,800 feet? How long? Hezekiah asked. 10 years. Maybe 12. You have 8 months. The engineer opened his mouth to protest. Then he saw the king's face. Hezekiah wasn't negotiating with hope. He was commanding with faith. This was the same king who had just cleansed the temple for the first time in a generation. The same king who had celebrated Passover with such joy that they extended it an extra 7 days. The same king who had invited the survivors of the northern tribes to abandon their fear and return to worship. The engineer bowed. "We'll need 2 crews." They started from both ends simultaneously. At the Gihon Spring, workers carved an entrance and began the descent into darkness. At the Pool of Siloam, another team attacked the rock from the opposite direction. No surveying equipment existed that could map a path through solid stone. No communication could pass through 1,750 feet of mountain. The 2 teams would dig blind, trusting geometry and faith to bring them together. Bronze chisels rang against limestone in rhythms that echoed through the tunnels. Dust filled lungs. Heat radiated from the workers' bodies in the confined space, turning the passages into ovens. Men worked in shifts measured by the guttering of oil lamps. They couldn't dig straight. The rock itself dictated the path. Where the limestone was dense, they curved around it. Where fissures appeared, they followed the weakness. The tunnels serpentined through the mountain's heart like water finding its course. Above ground, lookouts scanned the northern horizon. The Assyrian war machine had begun its march. City after city fell. Sennacherib's armies swept through the Shephelah, the lowland fortress cities that guarded the approaches to Jerusalem. Lachish, Judah's second-largest city, endured a siege of mechanical precision. The Assyrians built earthen ramps higher than the walls. They brought battering rams sheathed in metal. They shot fire arrows over the ramparts and cut off every escape route. Lachish fell. The Assyrians took 200,000 prisoners from Judean cities. They impaled the leaders on stakes arranged in neat rows outside city gates. They flayed captured soldiers alive and nailed their skins to the walls as warnings. And they marched toward Jerusalem. In the tunnel, the pace intensified. Workers no longer left for days off. They rotated in shifts, sleeping in the passages between hammering sessions. The foremen calculated angles obsessively, using the sound of flowing water as their only guide. Because here's what made the project brilliant. They weren't just digging a tunnel. They were following the natural water table, letting the sound of underground springs lead them through the rock. The northern crew angled downward, following the gradient. The southern crew cut upward to meet them. If they passed each other in the darkness separated by 10 feet of stone, the entire project failed. 6 months in, they could hear each other. First, it was vibration. The hammering from the opposite team resonated through the rock. Then it became sound, the distinct rhythm of bronze on stone. The foreman called for absolute silence. In the darkness pressed against the working face, they listened. The other team was close. Very close. But were they aligned? They drove a small borehole through. A pinpoint of light appeared. Voices echoed through. They were off by 3 feet horizontally, 3 feet. After 6 months of blind excavation through winding passages in the dark, the northern crew adjusted their angle. The southern crew did the same. The hammering intensified. Above ground, Assyrian scouts appeared on the Mount of Olives. The day they broke through, the Assyrian army was visible from Jerusalem's walls. The foreman driving the final wedge felt the rock give way. Water began trickling through the gap, not from above, but horizontally. They'd done it. They'd connected. Workers enlarged the breakthrough point. The 2 tunnels merged in a junction slightly offset evidence of the human skill and divine guidance that had brought them together. Water from the Gihon Spring began flowing through the mountain. It emerged inside the city walls at the Pool of Siloam, filling the reservoir with cold, clear water. Jerusalem's most critical weakness had become its hidden strength. The same day, Hezekiah's workers sealed and camouflaged the external Gihon Spring. They filled the surrounding area with rubble, making it appear dry and useless. When Sennacherib's armies arrived, they found a city that shouldn't have been able to resist. The Assyrian king brought 185,000 troops. He built siege camps in a ring around Jerusalem. His field commander, the Rabshakeh, stood before the walls and shouted propaganda in Hebrew, trying to break the people's morale. "Don't let Hezekiah deceive you," the Rabshakeh called out. "No god of any nation has delivered their land from Assyria. What makes you think your God will save you?" On the walls, soldiers gripped their weapons and said nothing. Their orders were clear: do not respond, do not engage. Inside the city, water flowed. The Assyrians waited for thirst to break Jerusalem's resistance. They'd seen it 100 times. Once the cisterns ran dry, once children began dying, gates opened and cities surrendered. But the cisterns never ran dry. Days became weeks. The Assyrian camp, sprawled across the countryside without natural water sources, began suffering its own shortages. They'd expected a quick siege. They'd planned for thirst to be their weapon. Instead, something else came: the deliverance. The angel of the Lord moved through the Assyrian camp at night. 185,000 soldiers went to sleep. By morning, 185,000 corpses lay in their tents. No battle. No resistance. Divine judgment fell like frost, silent, comprehensive, absolute. The scriptures don't explain the mechanism. The text simply states the result. The army that had destroyed nations, that had besieged an impregnable city, ceased to exist between dusk and dawn. Sennacherib fled back to Nineveh with the remnants of his personal guard. Jerusalem stood unconquered. The tunnel had served its purpose. The water had sustained the city through siege. But the deliverance came from the same God who had inspired the tunnel's construction. Human responsibility and divine sovereignty had merged in the darkness beneath the mountain, just as two tunnels had met by faith and mathematics. The tunnel remains. Today, you can wade through Hezekiah's tunnel, feeling your way along the same limestone walls ancient workers carved by lamplight. The ceiling height varies, sometimes 6 feet, sometimes barely 3. The water still flows cool and clear. In 1880, a boy discovered an inscription carved into the tunnel wall near the junction point. The Siloam inscription, written in ancient Hebrew, commemorates the moment of breakthrough. While the hewers wielded the axe, each man toward his fellow, and while there were still 3 cubits to be hewn, the voice of a man was heard calling to his fellow, and on the day of the breach, the hewers struck each man to meet his fellow axe against axe. Then the water flowed from the spring to the pool. The workers had carved a memorial to precision and faith. Modern engineers marvel at the achievement. Without surveying equipment, without iron tools, 2 Bronze Age crews met in the middle of a mountain with a margin of error smaller than a doorway. The tunnel's existence saved more than one city. It preserved the line of David, protected the place where the Messiah would later teach, and demonstrated a principle that echoes through Scripture. Faith without works is dead. But works without faith are merely impressive. Hezekiah could have prayed for water and done nothing. God could have miraculously sustained them. But the king carved a tunnel through a mountain while trusting God for deliverance. The Assyrians could have broken through any wall, overcome any military defense. But they couldn't survive the angel of the Lord. Human effort and divine power, not opposed, but aligned. Years later, Jesus would stand at the pool of Siloam and heal a blind man. He told the man to wash in the very pool that Hezekiah's faith had filled. The water that had saved a city became the place where sight was restored. Different miracle, same God. The tunnel whispers a question to everyone who walks its length. What impossible thing is God calling you to attempt while trusting Him for deliverance? What mountain must you carve through in darkness, listening for the sound of His voice echoing from the other side? The chisel marks remain in the stone, evidence that faith moves more than mountains. Sometimes it moves through them.